Okay, this is the lecture for Wednesday, the 27th of January, 2021, for Ancient and Medieval History. Where we were last time is we had discussed the Second and Third Punic Wars, the great struggle that determined the fate of the Mediterranean world by deciding who would control the Western Mediterranean before they would then go east to confront the Greeks. Rome wins. Carthage loses. Carthago has been delenda est. Cato's dream has come true. The great viper at their breast, the great nemesis, the antithesis of Rome has been destroyed. You'd think, party time! It's happy times! Ding dong, the witch is dead, the wicked witch, or whatever the song is, however it goes. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. You would think that this would be a time for celebration and joy, a time when Rome could relax. Well, in a sense, it is. Just after World War II, the United States experienced something like that. And for a very long time, we rode off of our success there. Why? Because we won World War II. And then we won the Cold War against communism. And before that, we had won World War I. We knew how to win wars in those days. In any event, it should be a time of joy, of celebration, of looking with confidence at the future. Claudia? Where?
She's behind you. Behind you.
Yeah.
In that corner.
Thank you. Given all of this, it's shocking what actually happens.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Rome gets everything it says it wants. Rome says that it wants to be free of the Carthaginian threat. It's free of the Carthaginian threat, Rome says that it wants security from an enemy that could defeat it. For a very long time, Rome has security from an enemy that can defeat it. Thank you. There's an old expression.
What's the expression?
I'm about to tell you. I'm just pausing dramatically and also to take a breath. The expression is, be careful what you wish for. You may get it. Be careful what you wish for. You may get it. Ryland. Can you, as a person, imagine getting the dream of your heart and having it destroy you? Can you picture a situation where achieving a long-cherished goal, something that you believe will make life better in every way, that getting your wish, your heart's desire, could destroy you? Careful what you wish for, you may get it. Ava, where are you? It's the masks. Rome is in that situation. By the way, before we go into Rome, can any of you imagine the kind of wish a person would wish for that could actually destroy them? Mira? Please pass this back to her. Yes, all right. Yeah, that's a big one. One of the things that happens when poor people dream about a better world is they imagine that they have more money. Rich people don't have that illusion. Wealthy people understand that money cannot make you happy. It is something that seems so simple. It's too simple. So you get somebody whose life is tough but fair, who works for a living and plays the lottery. And then they win the Powerball. They get huge amounts of money. And you would think their problems are over. How might they not be? How might their problems just be beginning?
That like skyrocket taxes.
Yeah, that's part of it. Because suddenly they're the 1%. They're the evil rich that people are still allowed to hate and be prejudiced against. So suddenly their taxes go from a reasonable amount until something that is horribly, horribly confiscatory. Yeah, that's part of it. Your tax rate goes up massively to the point where you're actually going to be spending as much or more on paying the government's taxes as you will ever get into your own wallet. Yes, so.
And there will also be probably some people who want to take advantage of you, not just family, but also friends.
Yes, you will suddenly become a wishing well with legs. Everyone will want something from you because you will be able to make their dreams come true. So they'll tell you their sob stories. They'll tell you about their aunt that has cancer, or their brother in law who has AIDS, or the crippled nephew or niece that they have. And the implication is by telling you that you're going to suddenly give them lots of money and make their situation better. And if you don't, you're a bad person. Also, in addition to the people trying to depend upon you for charity, there are the people who want to just take what you have. They want to rook you, cheat you, snooker you, con you. They want to take what you have by being cleverer than you. They are predators. You are prey. They are the lion. You are the wildebeest. So your relationships with other people are going to change. God forbid somebody falls in love with you who's beautiful or handsome. Could you really ever trust them? Or are they in it for the money? Are they in it to take, not to give? Do they love your money and not you? It's soul killing to have your life changed like that, especially if you're not prepared for it. If you grow up rich, you are prepared for it because you're used to it. It's a part of your normal life. Evan? Yes. Anyone think of anything else that would be a witch? Yes.
Well, like in Aladdin.
Yeah.
The sorcerer guy, he wants to be the most powerful being in the world, so he wishes for that. But the most powerful being in the world is a genie, so he's trapped in his own lamp.
Interesting. I've not seen the Disney Aladdin.
There's also like two sequels. Dexter? Okay.
That makes sense. Yeah, be careful what you wish for. It's like somebody who wishes for the end of racism. So what happens is suddenly everyone in the world is turned gray. Or everyone in the world is turned identical. And, yeah, wishes in legend and myth and literature and in magic are genuinely difficult things to deal with because they change the world. So Rome gets its wish. Rome is triumphant. Rome no longer has a nemesis-class enemy. Rome is in serious happy times. And it's going to destroy them. That's a hint, a spoiler alert for what's coming. Rome's nemesis is not a result of failure. Rome's nemesis is a result of its own success. The victories in the Punic Wars are going to start this. Yes?
I had another one.
Sure.
Sort of just power or control.
Okay. Certain power or control, like what?
Well, like being in control of someone else.
Oh, yeah. Talk
Overpowering
about
someone
corruption.
else.
If you learn to play people like puppets, and some people are really good at manipulating other people. Some of them make a living as priests. Isn't necessarily a bad use of your ability to persuade people to lead them to God if you're a true believer. Some people are salesmen. They can get people to buy things they wouldn't otherwise buy through a form of interaction. It's not intimidation exactly, it's charm. It's being a good salesman. A good salesman can sell anything because you're not selling the product, you're selling the customer. Some people use it to become cult leaders, to turn people into slaves. That's evil, obviously. And with great power comes great responsibility. So if you're given the power to change people's minds, That's the kind of power that can easily corrupt. Because you'll stop looking at people as real. Why should you? You don't have to. You might try to be well-mannered and treat people with respect, but the truth is, you can do whatever you want with them. You can make them dance and sing. You have total power. Total power is totally corrupting. Absolute power corrupts absolute. So yeah. So here's how it happens. Okay. Rome wins. And the city of Rome and the society of Rome that existed before the Punic Wars is gone. It's been replaced by something new. And to give you an indication of what this is like, I'm going to tell you a very common story. A story that is titled here, The Anecdote of the Roman Veteran. The truth is, the Romans themselves told this story ad infinitum. They told it constantly for hundreds of years to explain the fall of the Republic. Here's the story. Sextus, the sixth son, whatever. Sextus survives to adulthood. He comes from a plebeian family of family farmers in the Etruscan hills north of Rome. Sextus, as a young man, heeds the call of his country, and he joins the army, not just for a short term of service, but because of the wars against the Carthaginians or the Greeks. Sextus spends 20 years of his life with the colors. He's illiterate, except for learning enough to survive in the Roman army. He learns enough reading and writing and counting to be able to be a good military engineer. But Sextus's real talent, aside from survival, because surviving 20 years as a legionary, as a Roman soldier, is not easy. Sextus has a natural talent for ironwork, for making steel. He's a blacksmith. And so when his unit moves around, his primary job is to repair and make weapons for his fellow soldiers. At need, he can fight. He's trained to fight in the Roman manner. But he is a blacksmith, a military engineer and a blacksmith. And for 20 years, he serves with the colors. Now, because his family is illiterate, and because his literacy is only so-so, he doesn't get much chance to contact home. They know he's still alive because he sends them money, but the truth is, he's out of contact for 2 decades of time. Then there's a party. Sextus is leaving the Legion. He is retiring, an honorable discharge. He gets his fee, and he wants to go home. He wants to be on his farm. He wants to see his family and what's become of it. He wants to eat the bread of his home valley, eat the cheese of his own valley, drink the wine of his own valley, eat the olive oil of his own valley. That's his dream. To go back to the farm, justified as the savior of Rome, a veteran soldier, but just another guy. So he leaves the military, ships back to Italy, and walks towards his home valley in the Etruscan hills north of Rome. But when he crests the lip of the valley, it's unrecognizable. He has to make sure that he's in the right spot. Because instead of a forested valley with some pasturage and a dozen family farms, there are wheat fields as far as the eye can see. The family farms are all gone. The wheat fields are there. The forests are gone. The wheat fields are there. And in the best spot in the valley, it's not a hunting place anymore. There's a mansion there, a villa, surrounded by a fence. He walks down into the valley, this alien landscape, and he's looking for the brook that used to flow down from his house under the road or across the road. He finds the brook. But instead of the path up to his house, there's just walls on either side of the road and wheat. So he jumps the wall, walks up the pathway beside the stream, and he can see a filled-in cellar hole that used to be the basement of his house, of his family home, a home that his family built 200 years before, passed down from generation to generation. But the house is gone, the yard is gone, their farm is gone. They're just part of a wheat field. He goes back to the road, stunned, like a man sleepwalking, and walks the rest of the way up towards the gate by the villa. And he knocks. And a butler comes and says, "Yes, can I help?" And he says, "Well, I don't know. I'm Sextus. My family's farm is right over there, but it's not there anymore. The only house in this valley is your villa and the slave quarters around it. Can I speak to the master of the house?" And the butler says, I understand. Come on in. Come on in. Here, I'll get you some wine. I'll get you some cheese. We'll talk." So the butler brings him into the servants' quarters. He's not going to disturb the latifundista, the landowner, the plantation owner with this. Butler sits him down, gives him some wine, gives him some food, puts him at his ease, and says, "Look, I'll tell you what happened. I actually know I met your wife. I met your son. After you went off to serve, your wife and son and your father, who was still alive, I remember, they tried making the farm go, but without you, it was difficult, and it got more difficult every year. There came a time when the family was either going to lose the farm or borrow money, and they chose to borrow money from my master, the owner of this villa. The terms were reasonable and generous, but after a few years, they couldn't pay him back. This was true for pretty much every farmer in the valley. They all went into debt to my master. And my master gave them several years to make it work, but if what would happen if they defaulted on the loan, if they failed to pay it back, is he would get the land. And wouldn't you know it, all of them defaulted on the loan, including your wife. Your father had died by that point. Your son was a teenager trying to carry the burdens of a man, but he wasn't ready for it. So about 7 or 8 years ago, they were given a choice. The land became my master's, and they were going to be either allowed to stay and work as tenant farmers. They wouldn't have their own family farm anymore, but they could stay on the land and work for my master, not even as a slave, as a tenant farmer, sort of half free, half slave, and he'd take care of them. Or they could keep their freedom and go where they would. And they chose to keep their freedom. And the last I had heard, they were going to Rome. You may find them there in Rome. Sorry. I wish I could offer more comfort than I can, but this is what happened. To say that the legionary was in shock is an understatement. It's like he was just gut punched by a mule kicking him. In a haze of disbelief and horror, he leaves the latifundista's villa, the plantation owner's villa, goes back down the road, not even looking where his farm used to be, because it's gone. And he makes his way to the city of Rome, a city that is, even at this point, approaching 1 million people. Biggest city in the ancient world, west of China and India. In a city that big, finding his wife and his son, to say finding a needle in the haystack is difficult is nothing compared to finding them there. Ah! But there's my old friend, the officer. He was a patrician and a great man. And he saved my life and I saved his life. And we agreed that we were going to be comrades for life. I'm going to go visit him. He should be able to help me. So Sextus finds out where this man is. And since he is a nobleman from a well-known family, people can point him towards the family's townhouse. They have villas in the country. They've got a townhouse in the city. They're that wealthy. And when he goes to the townhouse, he's let in and he basically is there in the lobby, and the lobby is filled with people, mostly men, a few women, and they seem to just be waiting. It's around 10 in the morning, and from the upper level, coming down the stairs, is the officer, who we'll call Cornelius. Cornelius sees Sextus. Old friend! Battle comrade! Good to see you! And they do the military handshake where they grip each other's forearms. And ignoring everyone else, Cornelius brings Sextus into his study, gives him food and gives him drink, and says, "It's great seeing you. How have you been?" Because they, obviously Cornelius is retired from the army too. And Sextus tells Cornelius his troubles. My family farm, it's not there anymore. My family, not there anymore. The one thing I wanted to do was return to my farm, but it's gone. And now I've got a word that my wife and son are here. Maybe they're not even here anymore. And Cornelius says, don't say any word. Don't say another word. We're old comrades. We take care of our own. I'll find them for you. If they're here, I'll find them. If they left, I'll find them. You got a place to stay? No, of course you don't have a place to stay. Here, go over to this inn, stay with these people. They're friends of mine. They'll give you a good price. Try to get yourself settled. You're a great blacksmith. Find a job as a blacksmith. And as soon as I hear anything, I'll be in touch. So Sextus is incredibly grateful. Thank you, Cornelius. Kisses his ring, and he goes off and stays at the inn. Then he starts looking for work. He's a top-flight military blacksmith, but he can't find a job. And there are hundreds of blacksmiths in Rome. He's not even trying to become the boss. He doesn't have the money to start his own shop. He just wants a job. But what he hears again and again is the same thing. The blacksmith will welcome him in as a customer, and then they find out he wants a job, and okay, it's a little different, but still, they're nice to him. And he tells them about his skill, and he shows them a few things he's made, and he offers to demonstrate his skill on the anvil. And the blacksmith says, wait, you don't have to do that. I believe you. I believe that you're a veteran. I believe that you've got this skill. I would love to hire you. I would love to hire you. A man like you would bring so much class to this joint, to this establishment. You're the kind of, thank you for your service. You've saved Rome. You saved Rome from the Greeks, the Carthaginians. You're a hero as far as I'm concerned. But I can't use you. Here's why. If I hire you, I've got to pay you. And I've got to pay you a wage commensurate with your skills. So I got to pay you, which means my costs of doing business goes up. Which means I've got to sell my gear for a slightly higher price because I'm paying you. Why? You see all these men who are working here? They're not free. They're slaves. They're war prisoners that you and your fellow soldiers captured and turned into slaves. I don't even like using slaves, but I have no choice. My competitors all use slave labor. They buy the slaves with blacksmithing in mind. They train them up, and it's a one-time expense. You buy your slave, and then all you got to do is give them slops for food and give them a corner with hay in it to sleep, and they're your property. You don't have to pay them. You don't have to treat them right. You can use them until they wear out and get a new one. They're slaves. If I started using a free man as an employee, my competitors would they'd undercut me. They'd sell the hammers and nails and swords and shields that they were selling for a significantly lower price. And I'd go out of business. That's how narrow my profit margins are. I can't use you. I'm so sorry. I can't use you. What the heck is he going to do? Sextus is a man. He wants to self-support. He wants to have something to give his family. He keeps looking and he keeps getting that same answer. He starts branching out. Carpentry, stonemasonry, anything, military engineer. No work. Because the slaves are now doing all the manual labor. Because there are just so many of them. Because Rome has won so many wars. Finally, Cornelius calls. Sextus arrives. And Cornelius says, I have great news. Your wife and son are here in the next room. I found them. They look a little beaten up and rough. They've been living on the streets. But they're alive. And everything's going to be fine now. Hey, did you find a job yet? And Sextus explains the situation. Cornelius says, okay, we're going to talk about this and get this settled before you see your wife. Because I want you to have pride when you meet your wife again. You deserve to have pride. You earned it. If you find a job, all bets are off. But until you find a job, I want you to become my client. I'll be your patron. I'll make sure that you have a decent home for your wife. I'll make sure that you have money in your pocket to buy food and to live as a war veteran should live. I'll take care of all of that. It's my privilege and pleasure to help you out. In return, all I ask is that you make yourself available in the morning. You show up, and if I've got something for you to do, I'll tell you. You can do it. And if I don't have anything for you to do by midday, you can head out and do your own thing. So, until you find work, is that acceptable, old comrade? Sextus does not want to be a client. He doesn't want to be subservient. He likes and loves Cornelius, but he doesn't want to lose his dignity as a free man. But what choice does he have? He's in Rome. He has no money. He's already been taking money from this guy for lodgings. He can't find work. It doesn't look like he's going to find work. He accepts. He kisses the ring. He becomes a client. He then meets his wife and son. It's a happy reunion. And Cornelius helps them get set up in their own apartment. Every morning, Sextus cleans up and goes and is one of those many people waiting in Cornelius's lobby. If Cornelius has jobs that need doing, and he picks Sextus to do it, Sextus will do it. If Cornelius is running for a political office, Sextus will campaign for him. If Cornelius has people that owe him money, as a former soldier, Sextus knows how to collect. Whatever Cornelius needs, Sextus will do. And Sextus will never betray Cornelius. He will never betray his client. If his client tells him that the sky is green and the sun is purple, he will say and agree that that green sky and purple sun is just so wonderful. Because he is now not a slave, but he is Cornelius's. That's the patron-client relationship. And you see how Sextus, the Roman veteran, has changed from being an independent, self-supporting, plebeian family farmer into being a tool of a wealthy fellow. And this story happens again and again and again. Add to that the widespread corruption that all this money brings. You know, at one time, Rome had laws against luxuries. There were laws against women wearing too much jewelry in public or too much makeup. There were laws against men having too much silver or gold. A Roman was supposed to lead a simple, virtuous life, like a warrior, even when they're not in the legions anymore. They're supposed to have simple tastes. They're supposed to enjoy eating lentils. They don't need to eat the finest breads. Simple wine. Not the greatest vintages. But with all this money flowing into Rome, that simplicity is going bye-bye. And what's replacing it is a taste for luxury that's creating a new way of life for the Roman patricians, the Roman upper class. Roman patricians begin to build villas. And this really takes off in imperial times. But it begins in the late Republic. You got to have room for parties if you're wealthy. You invite people over, and you provide entertainment, and they bring themselves, and it's all entertaining. But it also reinforces your importance. Your clients all show up. Everything. It's great. But a real Roman party is going to have one or two things if it really is going to make an impression. It's going to have an orgy, or it's going to have so much food that you need to go to the vomitarium. The vomitarium or vomitorium is a special room. It's not a bathroom. It's a room where, okay, you've sat and you've reclined. Actually, Romans recline. They don't sit while they eat. And you eat your appetizer and your first course and your second course and your dessert course and then your third course. And you're talking and eating hour after hour. And you're eating so much food so quickly, the normal processes of digestion are going to get overruled. So what you do is you excuse yourself and you go to the vomitorium. And there you take a feather, stick it down your throat, and you purge. And you clean up with water, and you go back and you eat a fourth course, a fifth course, a sixth course.
Okay, that's like a similar thing. I don't know if you've watched the Hunger Games.
I've never seen it, but do they have that too?
Yeah, they have like in the second movie there, because there's like actually this kind of reminds me of Hunger Games because they're highest level of the like country I guess is in the capital.
Yep.
And so it's all this like super rich people who are basically like they'll party and eat so much that they have this special drink that will make them throw up.
Yeah.
So
They got that from Rome. The Hunger Games got that from Rome. By the way, we don't want that to happen in real life. That would be bad. But yeah, the Romans had a vomitorium, and it was considered good manners. You go there, you eat constantly for 6 hours, 3 hours in, you purge. And then maybe at the end of it, you purge again. That's not simple. That's not virtuous. That's not old school Roman. But it becomes more and more the thing because there's more and more money, more and more luxury. The character of Romans are changing. The simple virtues of the family farmer and the personal warrior are being replaced by the virtues of the latifundista. Now, what a latifundista is a man who owns a latifundia. It's a lot of fun, Dia. A latifundia is another name for a plantation, but it's a vocab word, so you should learn it. Latifundia means plantation. Latifundista means plantation owner. The guy who now owns Sextus's Valley is a latifundista. It's not just a farm. It's a plantation. It's not just a boat. It's a yacht. It's not just a car. It's a limo. It's not just a farm. It's a plantation. It's a latifundia. So these super rich latifundistas, yes, are living a completely new lifestyle, and it's becoming more and more divorced from reality. And also, all of this money is corrupting. Simple, do you trust a man to keep his word? Or do you need to have him sign a contract in order to trust him? Or after signing a contract, you need to watch him. Put a spy in his organization. People stopped trusting one another. Fellow Romans. Because people, as they got more luxury-loving, became more devious and selfish, less honorable. Slaves were a part of this wealth. Remember, slaves are wealth. Today, if a person is wealthy and they want to show off their wealth a little bit, they might buy a jet ski or a yacht or a really, really expensive car or a set of really expensive cars or a house in the mountains or a house in the mountains and another house over on the seashore or an aircraft, personal helicopter, personal plane. Depends on how rich you are. I want a personal submarine and personal machine guns. I can't afford those. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Someday.
Maybe. The machine guns will still be a problem. I'm only allowed as a citizen to have semi-automatic weapons. But in any case, you get the idea. So these slaves are a part of it. Romans would buy slaves for all occasions. They had their field hand slaves and their house servant slaves. They had their wagon teamster driver slaves and their sex slaves. They had slave pedagogues who taught their children, usually Greeks. They had slave engineers that worked for them. They had slaves of all kinds. Slaves, 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 slaves. So many slaves, they're practically giving them all away, but they're not. So a Roman who is wealthy at this time, after the Punic Wars, can dispense with having to treat people as fellow citizens. You're not having plebeians work for you anymore. You have slaves that you own, that you do with what you will. Slaves are property. So what is Sextus now? He's no longer a plebeian. He's no longer a self-supporting family farmer. There's a new class of people that is born, that actually Karl Marx talks about thousands of years later. The new class of people is called the proletariat. Now, the proletariat are the urban poor, the Roman mob. That's the definition. The urban poor, comma, the Roman mob. The urban poor, comma, the Roman mob. Here's what distinguishes a proletariat in Roman times. They don't support themselves. They are supported by wealthy patrons. So a member of the proletariat is a member of the urban poor. They don't have much money themselves. They depend on others to give them money. But in return for that money, they are completely loyal. This is where the Roman mob comes in. Let's say Cornelius is having a political campaign, and he's having trouble with his opponent. Boy, it'd be a real shame if his opponent's house burned down. It would be a real shame if his opponent's servants got beaten up in the street. It'd be a real shame if there was theft of the opponent's campaign documents. And guess what? Miraculously, suddenly, Cornelius' opponent's house burns down, his servants get regularly beaten in the streets, and their campaign documents get stolen from their house. Who did it? Who? The clients of Cornelius, the proletarians. They're a rent-a-mob. Not that we know anything about that in this country today. They're a rent-a-mob. The clients say, "What do you need from us today, boss?" And the patron says, "Well, I want you to go to the Roman Forum, and I want you to shout these chants and wave these signs and beat up these people." "Sir, yes, sir." They're off to it. And that's what they do. Not because that's what they want to do, but because they owe a debt of obligation to the patron. Suddenly the rich are not only able to treat slaves like property, they're able to treat theoretically equal Roman citizens like property. The proletarians, the urban poor, the Roman mob, become tools of the wealthy in their conflicts with one another. This is different. This is a problem. Because once you get into the habit of treating people like objects, it's very hard to treat them like people again. You lose your empathy. You lose your sense of being a fellow human being. You lose your humility. And you become something else. So Roman society is dying of a sickness. It's not a sickness born of hunger or poverty. It's a sickness born of too much food, too much wealth, too much power, too much privilege, and too great a gulf between rich and poor. So two political parties emerge in the late Republic. The Optimates and the Populares. The Optimates are the party of the wealthy and powerful. The rich, the best of the best. That's what optimate means. Like the word optimum, it means sort of the best setting. The optimum setting on your stereo or your sound system. The optimum setting for your video game graphics. The Optimates are the best. They are the senators, they are the latifundistas, they are the patricians, they are the high military officers, they are the priests, and they are people who sympathize with those traditional leaders of society. Those are the Optimates. The Populares are the popular party. They're the party of the plebeians and of the proletariat. Well, to the extent the proletarians have a party. They're a party of the middle class, the Populares. And the problems in Roman society created by this wealth is going to play out. The Optimates want to let things be. The Populares want to have reforms that are going to get rid of the proletarians and a lot of the slaves and return Romans to their dignity of work. So, the Gracchi become the leaders of the Populate party. The Gracchi are two brothers, Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. And they are each, in their turn, a tribune of the plebs, which means they have the power of veto and they have the power of being inviolate. Can't touch them. Through their senatorial allies, because there are Populate senators, the Gracchi make a proposal for what is called land reform. Land reform puts a maximum acreage on every Roman farm. This maximum acreage will still allow somebody to be a great landowner, but the super large latifundias that are basically the size of counties, they're going to be broken up. You're allowed a maximum amount of acreage. The Senate's going to put a cap on that. Well, what about all those extra acres that you owned as a latifundista? Well, you're going to get what the government considers to be a fair wage for them. And that land is going to be divided up into plots the size of family farms. And the proletarians are going to be given that land. Now, they'll have to pay for it in the first 10 or 20 years. They'll have to pay back the money that was doled out by the government to the latifundista. But at the end of 20 years, they'll own their own farms again. They'll be back on the land again. They'll be self-supporting again. They're not going to be proletarians anymore. They're going to be plebeians again. It'll be great, the Gracchi argue. There's a problem. There always is with an idea like this. The land that was acquired by the latifundistas was acquired illegally. A government that can take your property against your will because it doesn't think you should have it is a tyranny. If they can take the extra land, they can take your slaves. Maybe they'll take your wives or children. Maybe they'll take your freedom away and turn you into a slave. A government that has the power to take your legally acquired property away from you against your will has strayed off the straight and narrow. And I'll give you an example to give you some sympathy for the Optimate's point of view, that this is unreasonable, that this land reform is theft, and tyrannical theft at that. You all know, as young Americans, that the world is not an equal place. There are rich countries and poor countries, and we are in among the richest countries ever that human beings have ever had. You were lucky in that you were born in America, compared to some third world pest hole. If only because you're not in deep, profound existential poverty. Okay. Let's say the United Nations and the governments of the countries of the world decide that this inequality is just wrong. And we're going to have a global redistribution of wealth. But we're not going to do it with money. You each, as young Americans, probably have access to a variety of electronic fun things. You probably have or will expect to soon have a smartphone, a computer of some kind to play games on and do work on, a television set, a radio, telephones. But there are people in Botswana that don't have any of that. So what the United Nations, in cooperation with the United States government, is going to do is we are going to redistribute the wealth. Every young American is going to have a choice. They'll get to keep one of their electronic devices, and only one. The rest will be taken by the government and given to the children of Botswana and Lesotho and Cambodia and Indonesia and Uruguay and all other parts of the world that are disadvantaged. Won't that be great? Won't it be great when the uniformed men come and search your stuff and search your home and you get to keep one of your things? How would that feel? It's not like you stole your electronics. Your electronics were bought by you or your family. But it's being taken in the name of social justice. Most Americans would not react well to that. And the Populares' proposal to limit the size of land and redistribute it to the proletariat offends them in just the same way. And the fact that the government offers to pay, okay, you know what? We'll give you $20 for every electronic device we have to take. We think, as the government, that that's a fair price. So if you have to give away everything but your smartphone, your laptop, which costs you many hundreds of dollars, you get $20 for it. Your television set, $20. Your landline telephone, $20. Your radio, $20. Government says it's fair. They're the only offer in town. They're going to take your gear whether you like it or not, by force. Because that's what laws are. Laws are compulsory. They're force. The application of force. So the Optimates have a real problem with this redistribution plan. And where we're going to leave it is there. The Populares are proposing redistribution, and the Optimates are opposing it. Any questions, comments, or thoughts? Okay, you can talk quietly among yourselves until dismissal, including you at home.